Hello and welcome to the Domestic Workers Chronicles, a channel where we talk everything domestic workers, where we talk everything about auntie, hashtag made for you, hashtag the good, the bad and the ugly. If it's your first time on this channel, please subscribe, please like our channel, interact with us, send us your questions, send us your queries, send us your stories. We'd love to share. There is so much that is happening within this space and there's so many things that we can cover. But there's no topic that is not acceptable in this space as long as we are talking about this space. In my previous episode, I was talking about the different nationalities and I did elaborate on the different types of domestic workers. And I did explain that domestic workers in itself is a sector, and within that sector there are subsectors and there are different types of domestic workers. Of course that will make sense because obviously we stay in different houses and our houses have different needs, our children have different needs, our parents have different needs. So we are continuing on the hot topic of the myth that is out there that people believe that a certain type of nationality is better than the other nationality is better than this one, and so forth and so on. In the last episode, I spoke about the strength of the South African domestic worker and their weakness. And just to summarize, most employers believe that, South African domestic workers are quite entitled. They don't want to work, they have excuses, they want to go home anytime, they have problems and things like that. And I am agreeing with, I agree with that statement to a certain extent, not the whole statement. There are people out there that are domestic workers that have given their employers problems. So therefore, that's why there is that kind of belief that South African domestic workers are entitled, right? But also when we look at the strength of South African domestic workers, they have entered this space a long time ago. During the apartheid times, a black domestic worker was already there, and they understand the do's and the don'ts within that space. They are able to be comfortable within that space. If anything, they are able to build a career out of that space. The most important thing is that when employers hire a South African domestic worker, I would encourage them to make sure that the terms and conditions of that contract is outlined from day one. So there is no gray lines. If you hire a South African domestic worker or you prefer a South African domestic worker, just make sure that everything from Matomo, the person knows this is what you're here to do, this is when you're going to come in, this is the time that you're knocking off. Moreover, they want to be clear, when is my salary coming in? And is my salary going to be paid EFT or what are we doing? Are we doing Mukuru? Are we doing e-wallet? Are we doing ShopRite? On which day am I going to be paid? When am I supposed to take leave? Do I take leave every week, every weekend, so forth and so on? You understand? It's not, they just want things to be put out there from day one. However, they've got many strengths. They love the sector. They build in the sector, and it's easy for them to adapt to any family because, of course, the cultures that exist in South Africa, they are quite familiar with them. Now, in my previous episode, I stopped where I was talking about the Lesotho domestic workers. I smile because there's so much myth around the Lesotho domestic workers. So you find that employers believe that Lesotho domestic workers are there to take their husbands or are more interested in men in South Africa. And some of them use certain things. And some of them, as soon as they are comfortable within that job, they start being disrespectful. Like they talk back and so forth and so on. And just to unbundle on that, we need to understand that Lesotho nationals, when they come to South Africa, they come to South Africa for the sole purpose of working. They are not here to visit their relatives. They are not here to to check that, oh, if I work for Lindiwe, it's going to be like this. If I work for Homozo, it's going to be like this. If I work, they are here to work. So if they've been appointed whilst they're in Lesotho, the sole reason for them to travel to South Africa is to work, and not only work for themselves, but work for the families that they've left behind. Remember, they have children that they've left behind. They've got parents that they've left behind. And these people that are left in Lesotho, and I think as South African, we need to sympathize and understand the economic state of Lesotho. So if you understand that country, you'd understand why it's important for them to work here and earn money here and make sure they take care of the family that they left behind. So that in itself becomes their strength, because their objective and goal for being here is to make sure that they work and they deliver what needs to be delivered. They go home, they take care of their families. Where it goes left is where there is mitlakano, you know, these groups, imbizo, and that is natural. If we come from a foreign country and somehow connect by language, we would then agree where we're going to meet, go parking on Saturday or Sunday, just so that we can de-stress, right? A South African domestic worker doesn't need to connect with anyone to de-stress once a while so they can speak the same language. But a Lesotho national needs that. It's, I mean, health-wise, psychology-wise, they need to be talking to people who are in similar positions, who come from the same country as them, just to share the stresses, the challenges, and everything that is happening in that sector. That does not necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. If anything, we do encourage that on Saturdays and Sundays, where they're not working, they should get together and meet and talk and chat. Now, the disadvantage of the gathering of the people of Lesotho is that some domestic workers from Lesotho have been in South Africa for such a long time that they end up thinking that they know it all. And therefore, if you are a new entrant to the space and you are from Lesotho and you haven't been in South Africa for more than 5 years, these ones that have been here for more years then influence you in a bad and negative manner in terms of how you can then view your job. So, I mean, we have lots of employers that have employed good domestic workers from Lesotho. However, after a certain number of years, sometimes even months, they start misbehaving because they would then get the influence from these ones that have been here for longer. So when you are looking for a Lesotho domestic worker, look for someone, you know, this is just my personal observation. Look for someone who's matured, someone who can stand their ground, and someone who's not easily influenced, right? In regards to husbands and boyfriends and partners being taken, I'm not an expert in relationships, so I cannot really say much about it. I don't have a view on that. I have not experienced that personally within our organization, or I have not met an employer who was brave enough perhaps to tell me that personally their husbands or boyfriends were taken by a Lesotho national. So I don't have much contribution towards whether they will take your husband or not. But my biggest thing is that when you hire a Lesotho person, the advantage is that she's here to work, she will deliver, and you also need to take it upon yourself to assess their personality, to make sure that it's someone matured, someone objective, someone who's not easily influenced. I've had a Lesotho lady for as long as I remember. She is pretty, she is young. Well, now she's not young anymore. When I met her, she was quite young. And her looks never threatened me because she came across to me as someone who's, yes, I'm young, but I'm matured, I've got children, and I indeed want to work for my children. And also be open to teaching. If you get a Lesotho national who is the first time she comes to South Africa to work, be open to teaching. If you sort of have that open communication with them and you teach them and you make sure they understand what is it that you expect from them, and make sure that equally with South Africans, you are transparent about their payday, their leave days, and the do's and the don'ts within that household, they then deliver. Their weakness in terms of this space is that they are not, most of them, not all of them, most of them are not good communicators. So when they are not happy with something, or they dislike something, or they are worried about something, They're not like South Africans. They won't come and say, madam, I don't like this, I do this. They just plan their exit. They plan their exit. So if they don't like something, or you said something to them and you offended them, they're not going to come back and say, oh, Madam Komozo, you offended me. They're going to leave. So from that time, they're already planning their exit. And once they're planning their exit, they might be planning to exit with your property and your TV and your watch and your ring. We don't know. They are planning their exit in June and they are exiting in December. So be sensitive towards that. So they are not good communicators. They are not upfront. They are not confrontational. South Africans are confrontational. Not all of them, but mostly. Why? Because of the history of South Africa and what has happened in this country. So they are not, South Africans are not confrontational because they want to fight, but that's the nature of who they are. So if they don't like something, they just pose it out there, sometimes with a disrespectful tone, but sometimes with a respectful tone. But Lesotho, unlike Lesotho nationals are not confrontational. So it becomes important that you as an employer make sure that there is that open communication. They are free to come to you and talk to you. And if you can sense that, oh, she's quite unhappy with something or something is bothering her, they appreciate when you come to them and say, Auntie, can we talk? They appreciate that, right? When you start the conversation instead of them starting the conversation. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me while we're talking about the nationalities. We are going to talk about the Zimbabweans and Malawians in my next episode. Please like the channel, subscribe, send us your comments. Hope to see you in the next episode. Thank you.